our very first speaker, guys. I am honored, and you might have noticed, I mean, I'm a little biased, coming from the world's greatest Navy. I mean, you might have noticed my tribute to Top Gun, on my own personal aircraft carrier. But our first speaker, that is what he did for a living. Mr. Jack Becker, fighter pilot, peak human performance expert. He is now the CEO of Flight Level Solutions. He served as an F-18 Super Hornet fighter pilot, instructor pilot, and the Navy's Chief Crew Resource Management instructor. He was a graduate of the Naval Academy, decorated combat pilot, over 30 combat missions, and he now speaks all across the world on how we take care of safety, how we have a mindset of leadership, and how we bring people together. He is actually broadcasting live from India. So it is my great honor to introduce my fellow naval leader, Jack Becker. Jack, take it away, man.
All right, thanks, Jason. I'm humbled to be part of this awesome lineup today with amazing leaders and influencers. My name is Jack Becker, and I'm founder and CEO of Flight Level Solutions. For over 11 years, I've been helping companies just like yours rid themselves of a cancer that they often don't even know is there. And that is repeating the same mistakes over and over again. Flight Level Solutions is my team of fighter pilots, physicians, and human performance experts with one goal in mind: helping your team reduce their mistakes. Today, I'm going to introduce you to a process, a simple, repeatable process that will make your team better. Most people think that fighter pilots are these mythical beings with chiseled abs, great hair, killer shades, and amazing beach volleyball skills. It's not entirely true. I'm only just okay at beach volleyball. But I am a combat decorated F-18 Super Hornet fighter pilot, instructor pilot, and most importantly, I was the Navy's chief instructor in this process called Crew Resource Management, or CRM. And it's a process that fighter pilots use to capture errors in high-risk, challenging environments. And it's a process that also guarantees me victory in combat. And what I've learned by applying it to the American workplace is that not only does it guarantee victory in my world in combat, it also guarantees you victory in your world as well. Now, I'm not here to teach you how to fly an F-18 today, unfortunately, but I am here to take you on a mission. And that mission is to make your team perform simply better. My goal is for you and your organization to repeat your successes and not repeat your failures. I begin every talk I give by saying it's a great day to be a fighter pilot. Every day is a great day to be a fighter pilot. And it's a great day for us to get better. A lot of people will tell me that they think that I have a very dangerous job, and I don't think so at all. I think very simply my job is just unforgiving. And this process that I'm going to show you today is how U.S. fighter pilots became the best in the world at what we do with this simple and repeatable process in a very unforgiving environment. So what I've done is I've taken CRM, this Crew Resource Management, and applied my supersonic success pillars. And that is very simply this process of brief, execute, debrief, and perfect. This is the process that we use to perform at peak levels of human performance. And these are tools that you can give your team to create this new culture where every team member is buying in and looking to increase our performance. The 3 buy-in points that I like to make is that fighter pilots don't take shortcuts. We simply can't. It's easy to enforce because we never do it. I take shortcuts and people get hurt or people die. The second one is a little more challenging, and that is that it's never okay to become complacent. And as you know, human nature is very simply the more often we do a task over and over again, complacency can creep in. So I give you tools and techniques in the brief module on how we can battle complacency. And then lastly, it's never okay to let ego interfere with your job. Now, this is a big one for fighter pilots, because I'm sure you're thinking of some people either within your company or within your industry that have some pretty huge egos. We all know them. but I'll stack up fighter pilot egos against anybody's. The important thing is that we set those aside for the sake of professional betterment to improve the team. This is the foundation of supersonic success. Another point that I bring up is that when we execute a maneuver in training or in combat, we'll execute that maneuver up to our standards 4 or 5 times out of 100. That's not to say we don't get the job done. We're the best in the world at what we do. But we simply set the bar that high that I have 95 chances out of 100 to get better every time I do that. One of the exciting things that you'll see with your team as we start implementing this process is that a lot of things begin to improve. Sales, safety, quality, efficiency. You're going to see that everybody on your team starts performing simply better. Another big point I try and drive home is that when I strap into an $85 million F-18 Super Hornet supersonic fighter jet, I have a huge supporting cast. I have this team of everyone that I refer to as co-pilots, even though I'm the only one in the airplane. This team of co-pilots begins with my crew chief. He or she is in charge of this, what's like a NASCAR pit crew of 25 folks, where the average age is only 20 years old. And they're all working specific jobs to safely get me off that flight deck and into the combat theater. And once airborne, I'm talking to the strike controllers, telling me where to go and what to do with my ordnance. In theater, I'm talking to the Navy SEALs and Special Forces people on the ground, telling me where the enemy combatants are, where friendly forces are, where my threats are. I refer to all these people as my co-pilots because I need them to effectively and safely accomplish my mission. One of the things I rely on the most, mutual support. That is very simply the wingman mentality. I have always a wingman with me, sometimes 2, 4, 8, or even 16 wingmen. And the interesting thing about my wingman is that regardless of rank, age, gender, experience level, we all look out for each other because we have to. I can't do anything without my wingman. So in the first pillar of the brief, we quickly and efficiently cover how we're going to get everybody on the same sheet of music. Now, this process will work for an 8-hour shift or a 6-month project. In the brief, we're getting everybody on the same sheet of music, covering every team member, every wingman's roles and responsibilities. Then it's on to the execution phase. This is where I'm going to get your team to implement the 7 critical skills of crew resource management. This execution phase is very simply just doing our jobs. The 7 critical skills of CRM are very simply communication, assertiveness, leadership, decision-making, task analysis, adaptability, flexibility, and situational awareness. Now, these 7 critical skills are so effective that every Navy fighter pilot, every Air Force pilot, and every US-sanctioned airline pilot has to receive this training at least once a year. Why? Because these skills are scientifically proven to reduce mistakes. So a quick example I'll give you from the last bullet of situational awareness is that I come in and give your team a quick little quiz on how their level of situational awareness is. And then I teach them the exact same skills that our pilots are taught that give FBI and CIA agents supreme levels of situational awareness. And it's really exciting exercise because I see light bulbs going on all over the room. That's the execution phase. Then after we brief, execute our job, then it's on to the 2 most important tactics, and that is simply debrief and perfect. All the companies that I've worked with, I find far too often other priorities went out and they don't have a debrief. Invaluable lessons learned are lost forever. So the most important fact is just simply to have one. But I told you before, we're going to set our egos aside. When fighter pilots go into the debrief room, we call it crossing the blue line. And it's going to be brutally honest in there. Personal feelings, friendships, rank, they're all set aside because we always say that the debrief is nameless and rankless. The most important point I can bring out about our debrief is simply it's not about who's right, but what's right. We're in there to make the team better. Remember, we want to repeat our successes and not repeat our failures. So I'll go around the room and I'll ask each person to share with me 3 things that they did well today. And that's usually pretty easy for folks to brag about themselves. They like to say 3 things they did well in front of their subordinates, peers, and superiors. And the important thing about this, even if it's something that we think is minor or obvious, it's huge to share it with the team. Because if Jason shares with me something that he did well today, it might be something that I never would have thought of. And now that's in my bag of tricks. It's in my toolbox, and we just elevated the performance of the team. We do that around the room with everybody, but then it becomes more challenging. I'm going to ask everybody in the room to share with me 3 mistakes they made today, 3 things they did not do so well. We set our egos aside, and if I made a mistake, I'll talk you through the 7 critical skills of crew resource management, the decision-making, task analysis, what I should have done. And everybody on the team now learned from that mistake. They won't make that mistake again. We just elevated the performance of the team. Everybody just got better. If it's something so minor, and I'm sure that Jason didn't see me make that mistake, and I don't want to look stupid, I just sweep it under the rug. That was easy. Nobody knows. Now the team is doomed to repeat that mistake. But by sharing it, we're all increasing our level of human performance. That is how we perfect. Brief, execute, debrief, perfect. We roll all these lessons learned into tomorrow's brief to keep the cycle going. That is the process of supersonic success. That is how we get better each and every day. So mistakes cost time and money. You know that. Sometimes even worse. You can't afford mistakes. Failure is not an option. I told you at the start I had an unforgiving job, but I think your job is more unforgiving. You don't have an ejection seat. You don't have a parachute to get you out of trouble. You have to get it right the first time. And this process will guarantee that you do. It's a great day to be a fighter pilot. And it's a great day to be part of Eagle Rise Speakers. I hope that I can share this process with your team. Once again, I'm Jack Becker, and here's to your supersonic success.
Yes, I love it. So, and by the way, gentlemen, goose is spelled with 2 O's.
Yeah.
Throw that. So. No, Jack, awesome message, and it is absolutely so true. The after action, I mean, complacency in any job, and I know in so many businesses out there, it's a huge problem. They'll put structure in place, and slowly over time, it starts to wind down. So having those things in place is critical. Guys, if you have any questions for Jack, make sure you write them down. I'm going to roll into our next speaker. He was an Air Force veteran, or he is an Air Force veteran. He also is a retired Phoenix police officer. He is the subject of the book, Burning Shield. He is a sought after speaker. I love this guy, man. He is awesome. He fires me up on overcoming adversity, perseverance, self-belief. In 2001, he was trapped inside his patrol car when it was struck by another car at over 100 miles an hour. He was sitting at a stoplight. And he now tells an amazing story of survival, his fight for his life, his triumph over tragedy, and everything he does, the inspiration that he provides to so many others now, despite his incredible adversity, and going back and finishing his police career. So it is my great honor to introduce my man, Mr. Jason Schecterle.
Thanks, Jay. It's great to be here. And for all of those that signed up yesterday and watched Jason's awesome promo video, it started with an Army pilot, a Navy pilot, and an Air Force pilot walk into a bar. What's the punchline? Well, the punchline is the police officer has to show up and escort all of them out because the trash talk that they go back and forth between is almost embarrassing. So obviously I'm going to stick with myself and Jack Harris, and the Air Force is going to win this contest today. So we're definitely going to start with that. Thanks for the introduction, Jay. Man, this virtual thing is new. It's awesome. I'm loving it. I do miss being on the road. I do miss speaking, getting in front of the audiences, feeling that energy. So I hope everybody that's at home right now, sitting in front of their computer or their work desk, and you made the choice to tune in today. And that's what life boils down to. It's about the choices that we make every single day, dozens, hundreds of them. And we're at the mercy of our own choices. We're at the mercy of choices being made. You're seeing it every day right now by politicians, by our family, by the companies that we work with and work for. And it's a beautiful thing to be able to make these choices and be free to do so every day, all day. We're just not free from the consequences of those choices. And I think about this morning, you know, my alarm clock went off, and of course I was fired up. I was inspired because I knew what I got to do today. I got to be a part of this awesome summit that Jay put together. I got to be a part of this awesome team on Eagle Rise and listen to these great speakers that I'm going to leave here today so incredibly motivated. But I know that a lot of people this morning, as soon as the alarm clock went off, not only did that go off, it wiped off the smile on your face. And we can't let that happen. You are alive. Act like it. Today is your day. Today is a day to make a difference, to make yourself better, to make somebody else's life better. A couple of days ago, I'm driving through. I live in Phoenix, Arizona, and constantly I'm driving through the intersection of where I was hit. And for those of you who don't know my story, 2001, I'm a Phoenix police officer on patrol. Stop briefly at a red light. I'm running code 3, lights and siren. I get hammered from behind by a guy having an epileptic seizure. He's doing 115 miles an hour when he plows into the back of me. I had miracle upon miracle, God looking after me, tremendous support from people who were there to do their calling. My car burst into flames. I was thrown through the intersection almost 300 feet, right in front of a fire truck that was sitting there, and the crew on that truck was able to do their job. But a few days ago, I'm sitting at that intersection, and I was so blessed. I was so thankful that I got stopped at a red light so I could soak it in for a second. I could look at my own scene. I could think about what took place that night, see the flames licking the top of the freeway overpass, and what those men and women did, how brave they were to crawl into that car and get me oxygen, get me out of that fire in only 90 seconds, get me off to what I'm going to argue is the best burn center in the United States in less than 8 minutes. I had everything going for me. Spent 2.5 months in a coma and woke up, of course, to an unimaginable nightmare. But I believe very much in you don't compare your adversity, your nightmare, whatever you're going through to somebody else's. It's not going to look and feel like mine. It's not going to look and feel like somebody else's. We are not always going to make it through all the intersections that we have to cross. We're not always going to be unscathed, but we have the choice to do something with that once it's passed. Then it's back to our choice and our control, and we get to decide how we're going to move forward. Are we going to give up? Are we going to continue to trip over something that's happened in the past? Are we going to continue to run face first into a wall that we've already climbed? I survived. Why am I going to worry about the fire that I was in before? I'm over that wall. I have closed that door. I'm not going to continue to run face first into that. We're all dealing with that right now. We're all, we all have our unique circumstances. Jay, probably my greatest inspiration in life is Jay Redman, and I'm so proud to be a part of this Eagle Rise team and to be a part of what's going on today. But Jay says that there's going to be 5 ambushes in life on average. I think I've probably had 3 so far. I know there's more coming. What happened in the past happened in the past. And we all have these unique things. We have family members that we lose, or, we battle cancer, we battle financial setbacks or physical limitations, whatever it is. It doesn't have to look the same. But the one thing that we have to keep in mind, the old saying that comparison is a thief of joy. Somebody's got a bigger house, better job, drives a better car. Well, it's 10 times that when you talk about adversity. If you compare your adversity to somebody else's and say, oh, well, at least I don't have it that bad. At least I don't look and feel like that person. Then, I mean, you are absolutely grabbing yourself by the back of the collar and holding yourself in place. You have to own your adversity. You have to embrace what you are going through, because it's yours. It's your life. You have to write your own story. You have to read every line. You don't get to skip the bad chapters. You don't get to skip the few paragraphs that are going to make you sad, make you cry. You got to meet yourself where you are. And back to thinking about Jay, you know, his big thing is get off the X. And I know Jay well enough to know that when he was on the X that night and was getting shot at, of course there was a brief few seconds that it was, this is where I'm going to die. How did I get here? But it was only for a few seconds. Then it was, how do I get off of this? How do I get off the X? And then my support system, my team that is going to be there to save me. And he successfully did that and moved on from there. It's the angels and the demons that we deal with constantly throughout the day. It's not always about getting through today. It's not about getting through next week. Sometimes it's about it getting through just to the next hour. God, you know, right now I cannot feel what I want to feel. I can't see what I want to see. Keep taking a step forward. Just get to the next hour. Just get a few steps farther than where you are right now, and you're going to be able to see a little bit more. You're going to be able to see a little bit clearer. I can tell you after 19 years, no matter what I've gone through, and there's been a lot. I mean, the fire was a long time ago. My pain, my injuries, my therapy, that was a whole nother lifetime. I've got new and more difficult in some ways adversity like we all do. I'm only 47 years old. Adversity will never stop coming. And back to what I was talking about with the alarm clock going off this morning. Another thing that I thought about was, there they are, your angels and your demons. And they're like, Jason, we've been awake for 5 minutes waiting on you. We're ready to go. And after all these years, I'm like, you know what? We've been dealing with this every single day for my entire life. You know who I'm rooting for. You know who I'm cheering for. So you guys have at it, and let me know when you're done. As we sit here and talk right now, I've been alive on this earth for 17,364 days. It is my choice. It is my scoreboard. And I can tell you that it's angels, 17,364 wins, demons, 0. And I can go ahead and congratulate my better angels on win number 17,365 tomorrow. It's going to get better. Be patient. Accept your adversity, especially with what we're all going through right now, but with patience, prayer, understanding, and meeting yourself absolutely where you are right now. Not where you were a year ago, and not wondering about what you are going to be doing a year from now. Meet yourself where you're at right now, and you will overcome this. Be patient in your grief. Be patient in your struggle. Life is too beautiful, and it's too worth living. God bless every single one of you, and I will pass it on to the next awesome speaker, who is another Air Force guy. Rock on.
Jason, awesome, man. It is so true. Every day you wake up is a gift. It's up to you for what you'll do with it. And I know all of us have rough days, this kid included. You know, I have days where I get up and I'm just like, oh my gosh, but then you turn it and you recognize that gift you have. So Jason, I love it, man. 17,364 wins for the Angels, demons, 0. So, All right, our next speaker is the amazingly talented. He is an Air Force officer, Jason Harris. So Jason, if you want to go ahead and come up and join me. And I tell you what, I won't lie. I used to give the Air Force a lot of grief. I mean, it's just kind of being part of the military, but I can't really do that anymore because I owe my life to the Air Force. I mean, Air Force Special Operations, AC-130 crew saved my life. Jason worked around that circle within Special Operations as a pilot, and he now is taking his principles of trust and leadership from his career to cultivate cultures of no-fail trust. And he shares these actionable steps that will help out any organization, any team, and enhance incredible customer experience. So it is truly an honor to have Jason Harris with us, and I know he's going to blow you guys away. So Jason, welcome, and man, we're excited to have you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jason. I appreciate it. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here with you, to be with the rest of the Eagle Rise team, as well as everyone out there that's watching. There's a few things that I like to talk about when I talk about trust and I talk about leadership. You know, a lot of people, they talk about what does it mean to really have trust? And in the military, I like to talk about what do we do to have this thing called no-fail trust. When it's middle of the night, 50 feet off the ground, somebody like Jason Redman, a group of Navy SEALs, they have gone Winchester, meaning they've spent all of their ammo, and they need ammo because they're getting ready to get ambushed. You can't fail at that mission. Right now, all of us are in the fight for our lives in the midst of the uncertainty, in the midst of the chaos that we are all dealing with. And what are those things that prepare us to be able to deliver in the middle of the night, 50 feet off the ground, night vision goggles, and people's lives are at stake? That is called no-fail trust. When I talk about no-fail trust, the idea is being able to trust the training, being able to trust the process, and being able to trust the people. Right now in your organizations, do you have the right training in place? Do you have the right process in place? And have you empowered the people to be able to execute accordingly? Again, let me share my screen just so you can see what I'm talking about on this concept. It is empowering no-fail trust, being able to trust the training, being able to trust the process, and trust the people. What are you all doing to do that? But more importantly, today, what I want to talk to everyone about is a concept around cargo. I'm a heavy guy as far as flying airplanes. I flew C-130s most of my career, and I consider myself a mobility pilot. In that aircraft, we have 6 different positions for a combat crew. In that combat crew, everyone has a role, everyone has a responsibility, but most importantly, we are all leading. As we are all leading, what are we doing to ensure that we provide the right tools, the right things for us to succeed? And right now with our businesses, right now with our families, with our organizations, are we providing our people with the right cargo? Our most precious cargo, it is our people, and are you equipping them to sustain the inevitable turbulence that they will absolutely encounter throughout life and as they go out there to complete their missions? When I'm talking about cargo, the thing I'm talking about is creativity to address challenges, access to tools and resources, responsibilities, meaning empowering your people, goals and objectives, and then opportunities for success. Right now, for everyone out there, what are you doing to provide your people the most important element of your organization, the most important element of your business? What are you doing to provide those people the right cargo? Creativity. In the midst of uncertainty, that is where creativity lies. Right now, folks are being hampered with their creativity. I would venture to say that many of you have possibly been challenged by not being allowed to be creative in doing what you do. As a special operations pilot, having actually flown in the middle of combat, and then also having worked with elite teams such as Navy SEALs, Army Rangers, Army Special Forces, and all kinds of other unique teams, the thing that makes those teams successful is they start with allowing people to be able to be creative. Now, going back to that training and that process, they provide them with training, they provide them with a process, but then when they get to the empowering their people, they teach and empower their people to be creative, because that's how we solve solutions, by creativity. Are you allowing your people to be creative? then providing access to tools and resources. Right now, there is a Gallup poll out there that says that more than 60% of employees feel that they aren't provided with the right tools and the right resources to do their job. That's insane to think more than 60 people feel that way. When they when they went further into that study, what they realized was that sometimes those tools and those resources was just the simplest of things. Sometimes it was something that an organization already had. Right now, when people are coming to you in your organization and they're telling you that they need access to a tool or resource, are you listening to them? Are you providing that access? It might be something that you already have within your organization that you already have access to. And are you providing that space and opportunity for your people to have access to those tools and resources? Responsibilities. What are we doing to empower our people to own their responsibility? We've learned through studies that children sometimes, when we provide them with a level of responsibility, they rise to that level of responsibility. The same thing applies with those in our organizations. When we give them a level of responsibility and they understand it, they begin to respect it, and then they rise to that challenge and they execute the mission. And they actually have been proven that they feel better about themselves, knowing that they are responsible to lead themselves and to be a leader amongst their team. Then the goals and objectives. For the goals and objectives that you have for your organization, for your teams, for your families, have you shared those? We've had a lot of time at home, my spouse and I, and we spent a lot of time discussing what our individual goals and objectives are and what our goals and objectives are for our family. And it's been amazing how much we've grown and how much we developed. And some of the high performance teams that I've been a member of, some of the high performance teams that I had the opportunity to coach, that I've had the opportunity to present workshops for, what we found is that when you share the goals and objectives of the organization, when you share the goals and objectives as a leader, people then begin to take hold of that and they begin to find some level of ownership for themselves as part of that team. Now you can see that that high performance team is allowed to start operating at a much higher level and executing at a much higher level because you, the leader, you, a member of that team, has individually and collectively shared your goals and your objectives. Lastly, opportunities for success. You see, when I talk about no-fail trust, what you have to understand is that there are a lot of opportunities to succeed leading up to that mission. There were also a lot of opportunities to fail leading up to that mission. Right now, we have to fail up front as we learn to fly an airplane. I don't go out there and fly an airplane and have a perfect landing the first time I ever land an airplane. It takes a lot of training. It takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of instruction. It takes a lot of failure. It takes a lot of time of me practicing for that mission so that when it finally happens, I am able to execute that mission with a level of trust, a level that's at the no-fail trust level, because I've been given opportunities to succeed along the way for your team, for your organization, for your children, for your family. What are you putting out there as opportunities to succeed? What are the opportunities for small wins so that people get a level of confidence so they can go out there and do the big thing that is up next? That's what we're talking about when we're talking about providing opportunities to succeed. Baseball is won not by home runs. Baseball is won by base hits, folks. In business and life, we have to provide those opportunities for the small wins so that our folks begin to get used to winning, begin to get used to succeeding. Again, that is what I'm talking about, the cargo method, providing our people, our most precious cargo, with the right cargo for them to succeed in business, in high performance teams, and in life. Again, I am Lieutenant Colonel Jason Harris with No-Fail Trust. Always remember, trust the training, trust the process, and most importantly, empower and trust your people and provide your people the right cargo, because our people are our most precious cargo that we have. Back to you, Jason. Thank you so very much.
Jason, awesome, man. I mean, despite coming from the Air Force, you have an amazing no, I'm kidding. Dude, seriously, I love your concept. It's on point. And it really, I mean, you guys, it is amazing how blessed we are to have these incredible people like Jason Harris and some of our other speakers. I mean, to just come together. You know, we have a saying in Eagle rise with us. And I think it's such an appropriate thing. If you surround yourself with amazing, positive-minded people like Jason Harris, like Jason Schecterle, like Jack Becker, and these other speakers that we have, you can't help but drive forward. I mean, that is the essence, man. Being around positive-minded people will bring you along. And I love it. So, Jason, awesome, man. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So, all right, guys, our next speaker is, I'll be honest, man, I am a huge personal fan only because I have watched his journey. And I'm going to give just a little bit way back in 2000. I think it might have been as early as 2016. A friend of mine, Sean Lopez, said, "Hey, man, I've got another friend who is a Marine. He is really, really struggling. He fought in the Battle of Fallujah. I really think the leadership program you're putting together would be a good program for him." And and fast forward into 2018, I met Ozzie Martinez for the first time. And he came into our program and just talked about so many of the struggles that he had had. But I watched a guy who literally got off the X and had started and just literally it just ignited a fire in him that he now is just running with, man, and just setting the example. He's doing so well. I recently brought him on as a coach with my Overcome Army. He runs his own nonprofit. He launched his own podcast called Post-Traumatic Survival, helping other individuals that are out there that have been through trauma and just using the experience he's had, both as a Marine combat veteran and as an individual that literally hit rock bottom on how to drive forward. So it is my great honor and privilege to welcome my friend and fellow coach, and of course, you know, the lone devil dog, for today's show, Ozzie. It's awesome to have you on here, man. So please take it away.
Thank you so much, brother. Thank you to everybody for joining us today. And I want to say I'm honored to be a part of this group, part of the Eagle Rise group, as everybody has said. And it's ironic that I'm on today with 3 pilots because I think everybody here is a pilot. Every single one of us is a pilot. And we're all piloting the most important piece of equipment, and that's our brain. My mindset is what's gotten me through everything that Jay's talked about, and you'll hear me talk about it a little bit. I do want to introduce myself fully to everybody, so the individuals that don't know who I am. So I'm first-born generation, born here. I come from a family of Cuban immigrants that fled communism, and I was born into this, heard about the freedoms that we have here, and on September 11th of 2001, my life changed like everybody else's life changed. I saw the towers go down, and to me, that was the United States being crippled down to its knees. I didn't want to be one of these individuals sitting around doing nothing. I was 20 years old at the time when this happened, and I decided to join the Marine Corps immediately. And I was shipped out to boot camp immediately. And we went through our training, and I was in Iraq in 2004, like Jay said, in Battle of Fallujah. Our unit took significant losses in Iraq in 2004. We lost 5 individuals. I was part of the recovery efforts for some of the incidents that we went through. I was part of the QRF team as well, Quick Reaction Force, and I saw a lot of recovery that we did for other Marine Corps units that had been hit by convoys that had been hit. And I went again back out in 2005 to Iraq, got out in 2006, came back home to Miami, beautiful Miami, and hit life running down here. If anybody's ever been to Miami, you know it's a fast-paced life, and you have to come here like that. You have to get on the road like that. And that's how I took off. I thought my life, you know, from the Marine Corps was over. And in 2008, I got reactivation letters stating since I had been over in Iraq, since I had been deployed at least twice, and I was a corporal or sergeant, we had been selected to be reactivated to train Afghan forces. So that's where my life took a turn to a different location I never would have thought I would ever be going to. But I started having nightmares. I started having flashbacks. I started having anxiety attacks in the middle of the day. And it was all because I was just told that I was going to be going to Afghanistan for a year to train Afghan forces. This is my third time going over. And I was very scared about losing my life. I felt like this third time was a charm. So I went to the VA because I needed to get help. I felt that if I was going to go to Iraq, if I were Afghanistan or wherever I was going to go for this third time, especially after being out 2 years, I need to get my mind correct. And I didn't know that this would trigger, a whole PTSD thing. And by the end of the couple months, I ended up finding out that, I'm now disabled for PTSD and I'm not deployable status for the Marine Corps. I've also was in the process of trying to become a cop and that fell through. I tried to become a firefighter after that, and that fell through. And that's when it was brought up to my attention that my PTSD rating, me being labeled as somebody with PTSD is what's affecting my hiring process. That's all I ever wanted to do when I got out. So at a young age, at 28, at the age that I was at when I was first given the diagnosis of PTSD, I hit rock. I didn't know what to do. I was lost. I felt like I was broken goods. I still knew I could function. I still knew I could work, but I was being told I couldn't. And I tried going, working in retail. I was a general manager for a few stores, but just wasn't what I wanted. And finally decided to go ahead and take my retirement, the 100% disability. And I, started living that life. I started going with it. And that leads me to where we're kind of the state that we're at right now. Last night, Jay brought me onto his Instagram live and we talked a little bit about what I was going to talk about today. And it's about mindset, like I said. I ended up quarantining myself, I would say, for 2.5 years or a little bit more than that. My wife and I got separated in December of 2011. She asked me to leave the house because of my drinking and my abusive medication. And I did that. I left the house. I left my car there. I left my license there. I left everything behind and just quarantined myself in a 1-bedroom apartment. I got my son on the weekends and that's about it. I didn't leave. I would have sometimes food delivered to my house. I did this, like I said, until 2014. I went to a reunion where that reunion saved my life because I was suicidal. It got to the point where I let my mindset, and Jason Schecterle talked about it, getting on the X. For those of you that don't know, the X is, that spot in an ambush where you're getting ambushed. That's the X. And I let myself sit on an X for years and years. And that's the mindset that I developed. I developed that I was broken. I developed that I was constantly depressed and I was no good for anything. I couldn't be a cop. I couldn't be a husband. I could barely be a father. And that's the mindset that I kept on just giving myself. And it got to the point where I felt alone. And I know I'm not the only individual out there. This has nothing to do with combat. This is just the way that you get yourself in this depression and this mindset. And I got to the point where I felt alone. I felt that not even the individuals I served with, when I would look at their profile on Facebook and how great their life was doing because of the pictures they post, I didn't feel I even got along with them. I became suicidal. And eventually I went to this reunion, like I said, in 2014, marking the anniversary of our deployment to Fallujah. And in this reunion, I realized I wasn't alone. I started asking real personal questions. Anybody here ever want to kill themselves, or anybody here ever want to die? And individuals were speaking up, and I found out I wasn't alone. I came back from that with a totally different mindset, not knowing that I wasn't alone. I got back with my wife within a month. November of 2014, got back and immediately started working on how can I get individuals reunited to speak about their experiences, but with the individuals that only have their mindset. I don't want to bring, I've been in areas where people are like, I've been shot at, this and that, but it's not the same as the guys that saw that with me. So I ended up starting my organization called Operation Wet Vet in 2015, June 1st. And I ended up taking Sean Lopez out. Sean Lopez tells me about Jason Redman and the Overcome Academy, and I end up going to the Overcome Academy. And ladies and gentlemen, this is where a mindset that I had been trained in the Marine Corps, which were bled into it, improvise, adapt, and the last word, overcome. This is where this mindset that I already had been trained was brought out to me and shown to me in my face. And it was so clear to me now that how I could break down my training in combat and my training and my experience in combat to real life world. The X is a life ambush. Right now we're all being life ambushed, and this whole quarantine isn't fun for anybody. Depending where you're living at, it affects you differently. I'm in Miami, Florida, and just finally this Monday, the city opened up. Restaurants are finally opening up now. Gyms are still closed. The marinas finally opened up. So it's affecting everybody differently. And it's all about the mindset. What did I go ahead and do during this COVID experience? I went ahead and I started keeping my mind moving. I went ahead and kept myself going. I knew what sitting down and staying at home on the couch would do, because I did that for 2.5 years. I gained over 50 pounds. I got into drugs. I abused alcohol even worse. And it was just a really bad thing. And it was because of my mindset and my movement. I wasn't moving it. I wasn't moving, and it was just stalemate. So I end up, as soon as this started going, moving my brain, and I decided to go ahead and launch my podcast that I've been dying to do for over a year, and it's called Post-Traumatic Survival. And with our podcast, we're targeting anybody that's been through trauma, to be able to give them and rewire their brain to turn them into thriving survivors. Going back to that mindset, that's the whole purpose behind what I talk about. Going back to, well, I guess it was answered here, but Jason Byam asked, what's the number one tip? And I gotta say, it's mindset. So the mindset is what's brought me to where we're at right now. The mindset is critical because like I said, it will drag you down if you allow it to. But if you're able to continuously move forward, it's not going to drag you down. So, there's studies that have been shown that a body in motion will create creativity. So it's been known that, the late founder of Apple, Steve Jobs, held walking meetings, and Mark Zuckerberg held walking meetings. Every time Jay and I talk, we're walking. I'm walking in the backyard when I'm talking to him, and it's all about that mindset. I want to get the mind moving, because if the mind is moving, then you're going to be able to look forward, as some of our other speakers have said, and continue to move forward without having to sit on that X. Because I'll tell you, ladies and gentlemen, the one difference that I could tell you that I wish sometimes we were in combat, and that's why a lot of combat veterans say they miss combat, is that combat is simple. And that X in combat is simple because you know where your enemy's coming from. Life doesn't care what X you're on. It'll throw another X your way. It'll throw another life ambush your way. I mean, just examples. We're in this quarantine. I went out for a ride on my motorcycle one day a couple of weeks ago, and I witnessed a young lady die in front of me. That was one of the biggest life ambushes that came my way. And it was all about the mindset. I was able to react, which is an acronym that's taught to us in the Overcome Academy, and take care of that situation with the proper mindset. But if I would have let myself sit stale on that X, my mindset would have been out of this world. So, ladies and gentlemen, I look forward to hopefully speaking to a lot of you about mindset and about how important it is to get you into that proper mindset to get your goals going. And I hope to hear from everybody else. I appreciate. Thank you.
Ozzie, awesome, man. I mean, such a good message right now. I know there's so many people that are struggling in this pandemic. I had a friend reach out to me just last night and, talking about how, I think there's so many that alcohol, like he just more and more every day as he's dealing with the uncertainty and being out of work. And, it's exactly what Ozzie talks about, driving forward, maintaining that momentum, maintaining that overcome mindset. So, brother, amazing. Much love, man.
Thank you.
All right. Our next speaker is also a good friend of mine. I always say he is a modern day Renaissance man. He is probably the most well-rounded individual I know. When I talk about the Pentagon of Peak Performance, he probably is the strongest person I know in all 5 categories. Greg Amundson was one of the founding members of CrossFit. So literally when the founder of CrossFit, Greg Glassman, created CrossFit, Greg Amundson was the guy that was doing workouts with him to figure out what worked. And he is a heavy practitioner of the martial arts, having just earned his black belt in Krav Maga, a 20-year journey that finally earned him that title. He is a U.S. Army officer, federal law enforcement officer, DEA officer. He is a very practitioner of yoga, meditation, breathing exercises. So he truly spans the spectrum. He's written his 7th book, just came out, and currently he is at seminary school as he flexes his spiritual muscles, which I talk about in spiritual leadership is so important. So it is my great honor to introduce my friend, Greg Amundson.
Jason, thank you, brother. I appreciate it. Great to be here with all of the Eagle Rise speakers. Great to be here with all of you. My friends, many, many years ago, when I was starting in my career in law enforcement, one of my mentors pulled me aside. He said these words to me. He said, Greg, if you tell me the truth, I will believe you. If you tell me a fact, I will listen. However, if you share with me a story, then I will remember. I love those words because to this day, I remember every lesson that mentor taught me because he taught me within the context of a story, of a parable, of an illustration. My friends, today I want to weave together for you truth, fact, and story to help impart to you, to help teach the topic of achieving spiritual battlefield victory. Achieving spiritual battlefield victory. With that, we go into the Bible, the Old Testament, for just a moment, because this is one of the most remarkable texts you will ever find in the totality of Scripture. Listen to these words. The war between the house of Saul and the house of David lasted a long time. David grew stronger and stronger. Saul grew weaker and weaker. Let me share with you the reason why I love this verse, why it's so compelling. What we have here are independent variables, then a variable that influenced the previous fixed variables. What I mean by that is if we look at this verse, what we see are two people, David and Saul. Then we realize there's two independent variables. They're in the same war for the same amount of time. Now, in the same war and the same amount of time, we would expect that they would both either achieve victory or defeat simultaneously. Yet what we find is that one of them grew stronger and stronger. Meanwhile, one of them grows weaker and weaker. Now, I served in law enforcement, not mathematics. So, it leads me to believe that, well, okay, there's some fixed independent variables, but there must be something that David was doing that allowed him to achieve this strength, this increase in strength. And it turns out there was. When we look at the totality of David's life, specifically the battle of David and Goliath, what we find, or there are, in fact, 3 incredible principles that orchestrated or governed David's life. And I want to teach these to you today. These 3 principles are faith, identity, and virtuosity. Faith, identity, and virtuosity. Let's go to the battlefield. I'm sure this is a story that all of you have heard at some point in your life. David facing Goliath. What an epic battle that was. The day that David is on a battlefield facing a trained soldier in the opposing army. Wait a minute. What was David even doing on the battlefield? He wasn't in the army. David was a shepherd. So what in the world is David, a shepherd, doing on a battlefield facing a trained soldier? Well, that's a great question. And in order to find the answer to that question, we have to go back a few years earlier. We can't just pick up right in the battle as much as I would love to. We have to go back in time even further before the battle for the secret to what separated David from Goliath. Several years before that battle ensued, David was anointed the future king of Israel by a prophet named Samuel. Just a few moments before Samuel anointed David, Samuel almost anointed David's oldest son named Eliab. As a matter of fact, it was so close that Samuel had the anointing oil in his hand. He was approaching Eliab, getting ready to anoint him, when all of a sudden he recognized a voice in his mind that was not his normal voice. In other words, he heard in his mind what he was able to distinguish as the voice of God. And this voice in his mind said, "Stop. Do not anoint him." Although people look at the outward appearance, God looks at the heart. In other words, if we put this into modern context, what people tend to do throughout the ages is we tend to react to what's happening out there, when the most important faculty of who we are has nothing to do with anything out there. It has everything to do with what the Bible describes as the heart. Now, at the time the ancient texts were written, the original audience, the original author, they lacked the nomenclature or the word for what we now identify as subconscious mind. We have two faculties of thinking, our consciousness, then our subconsciousness. Those thoughts that are so deep in our being that they govern the totality of our life, even though we may not be aware of them. And it's those thoughts that are the most important thoughts about us. Those are the thoughts that matter, both to you and I, and they matter a great deal to God. So what we find right away about David is there's something about David that's not his physicalness, it's his spiritualness. Not his physicalness, but a quality of his thinking. The way that he uses his mind is what sets him apart from Goliath and from Saul. This is one of those faculties that allowed him to become stronger and stronger. So what was it then about that mindset? Well, this leads us to our first principle, faith. The word faith in the Greek and Hebrew, the best way that we can understand what that word means is the word trust. You see, David trusted God with his life. He trusted God with his life. More than just having faith, David trusted. He trusted so much that when he faced Goliath, he was willing to make a bet that my God that I have trust in is greater than this Goliath that all of you are afraid of. Wow, that's amazing. That's incredible. One of my favorite authors is a gentleman named A.W. Tozer. A.W. Tozer wrote these words. He wrote once that the thoughts that come into our mind about God are the most important thoughts about us. So if we take what A.W. Tozer said and we lay that over the mind of David, what we see is this is the first quality that separated David, both from Goliath and in the context of Saul. This allowed him to grow stronger and stronger while Saul grew weaker and weaker. This leads us to our second principle, identity. Identity. Just before Saul gave permission to David to fight Goliath, Saul said, "You can fight, but you've got to wear my coat of armor." Saul then put his coat of armor onto David. Now, for a moment, David had this armor on and he walked around in it. Then he realized, I can't fight in this. I haven't tested this. Well, what had David tested up to that point in his life? He knew his own identity. He knew who he was. He knew the unique gifts that he had. That gifting was the gift of being a shepherd, the use of his sling, fast maneuvering on the shepherd's field, a positive mental attitude. That's what David identified with. What was Saul identifying with? The armor. Where did Saul place his trust? The armor. Now, what's really remarkable is that as David was leaving the company of Saul to fight Goliath, Saul said, "May God be with you," as he held his armor in his hands. So this means that Saul, he had the formula, he had the words, but he lacked the trust. He was still holding in his hands what he trusted, the armor. Meanwhile, David is on his way to the battlefield. He's holding, in other words, his trust in God. Now, here's something that's often overlooked. I overlook this. Just before David went into battle, the scriptures tell us that he went to a small stream and gathered 5 smooth stones. This leads us to our third principle of virtuosity. Virtuosity means doing the common uncommonly well. The common uncommonly well. David took the time to select 5 smooth stones. He was not in a rush. He likely already had smooth stones with him in his shepherd's pouch. Yet nevertheless, this was a common task, the gathering of stones. Yet for David, he wanted to make sure that he took the time to find the right stones to take down the giant. When we review these 3 principles, what we see is, number 1, trust in God. Trust in a power, in a source greater than yourself. Number 2 is identity. Know who you are. Have faith in the amazing person you are, because the world will try to put armor onto you. The world will try to convince you you're someone other than who you are. So take that armor off, embrace the amazing man, the amazing woman who you are, who God made you to be. And number 3, commit yourself to virtuosity. Do the common uncommonly well. We think all the time, 24/7, we're thinking, yet can we think uncommonly well? 24/7, we're breathing, we're taking breaths, but can we breathe uncommonly well? 24/7, we're speaking, we're always using our words, but can we use our words uncommonly well? My friends, in closing, what I would like to do is invite all of you to take with me a breath, which is common. Yet let's unite ourselves and take one breath with virtuosity. One breath, which is common, uncommonly well. So wherever you are, you can either sit or stand. Either way, just roll your shoulders back. Close your eyes. Be still for a moment. Now, with the spirit of virtuosity, let's take a deep breath in, hold, exhale, slow breath out. Hold. Nice. Now open your eyes. One more deep breath in. One more slow breath out. Thank you, my friends, for joining me today. May God bless you and keep you safe. And I hope to see all of you again down the road. Jason, all yours.
Greg, awesome as always, man. Always love hearing your message. So strong. So guys, it's we have one final speaker, and actually I have to tell you that she is not here in person. She was having surgery today, and unfortunately her surgery got delayed. But I got to tell you what a stud she is. That even though she was supposed to have surgery this morning, she was like, "Hey, I'll still try and be here." But as always, we had a backup plan. So our next speaker is, we talked about the 3 pilots we had. And do I give you my joke now, or do we wait till the end? So we'll wait till the end. We'll finish it. But Elizabeth McCormick was one of the very first U.S. Army Blackhawk pilots. She is an authority on leadership and veterans issues, and she's empowered audiences all across America with dynamic keynotes and training. She keeps attendees on the edges of their seats, and she does such a great job turning her experiences as a military leader and a helicopter pilot into incredible lessons that can be utilized and immediately implemented. She has written 19 books, I believe. 19 books Elizabeth has put out on leadership and making a difference. So it is my honor to bring on this video, and then we will jump into A, my joke, and B, we'll jump into some Q&A. So give me 1 second.
Are you ready to fly? Are you ready to take off? So excited. Let's get started. So I'm Elizabeth McCormick, former U.S. Army Blackhawk helicopter pilot, and I'm here to teach you how to fly. Yes, we are really going to learn how to fly, but strap into your seats, because first we're going to talk about leading in crisis. And right now we have lots of change, lots of things going on, no matter whether you're an essential business or you are working from home or you're kind of shut down right now. There's crisis all around us. And part of the crisis comes from change and our resistance to change and being able to adapt and change. So let's talk some more about this. Now, I call this being in the crisis zone. And we've all experienced this different crisis, not quite like this. This is unprecedented, but we've all experienced some kind of crisis in our life, in our business, in our career, and different stages and ages that we've been in. So we've all had kind of that crisis zone. A crisis zone is also a potential zone. It's an opportunity for you to see things that you might not have seen before, or maybe have time to do something that you haven't done before, or maybe you're so busy because you're in that essential business that it creates a different kind of potential for you. There's always the flip side, right? We tend to look at crisis and change with angst and anger or fear or trepidation. And the fact is, there's also that flip side. There's opportunity. There's things that you haven't thought of yet. And so let's focus on that positive. But when we focus on that positive, it's all about being proactive, right? And so we're going to talk about how to be a proactive leader right now instead of a reactive leader. Because we've all had leaders that, in fact, if I said, have you had a bad leader right now? I bet that someone comes to mind, right? I know what it did for me. And if you've had a bad leader right now, I want you to go to the chat and comment yes. So if you're on here live, I want you to say yes. Oh my gosh, I've had that leader, right? And then, have you had a good leader? Have you had someone that just knocked it out of the park, that inspired loyalty, that you wanted to walk behind or beside all the way through, right? And if he had a good leader, and if you had a good leader, I want to see that in the chat and say, yeah, I've had a good leader. Yes, I've had that. Because there's characteristics of good leaders and there's characteristics that maybe not so good. So let's talk about being proactive. Because right now, when you're in crisis, you have the choice of being proactive or being reactive, right? And as a pilot, you know, we had to be proactive. We had to be ahead of the aircraft. Because if you're not ahead of the aircraft when you are flying, you're behind. You're automatically behind. And being behind is not a good thing when you're flying a helicopter. It's not a good thing. So we're going to talk about being proactive today. Ready? So it's really easy. There's a simple acronym for this, and that proactive leaders are vested in their organization. And vested, of course, because we're military, we love our acronyms, right? Vested is about being visible, empathetic, soliciting data, thinking strategically, making effective decisions, so effective decision making, delegating productively. Let's go deeper into being a vested, proactive leader, because I could do all day on this. So we're just going to hit the highlights. Okay. Sound good? All right, let's do that. Okay. So proactive leaders are visible. How are you, if you're working from home, how is your team? How do your coworkers, how do other people around you, your customers, they know you're visible? Does that look like on social media? Is it being on an open Zoom line at any time where they can jump in and talk with you and ask a question? How are you being visible? How are you showing up during this time? Any ideas? What about being empathetic? The E is about being an empathetic leader, because right now more than ever, like you gotta put your heart into it. and be of service and help people and try to find heart-centered solutions more now, because a small touch of empathy right now is going to last a really long time down the road. It is going to go far for you. And in fact, right now, you can probably think of a company that's not being very empathetic. Does it make you want to do business with them later? Because what you do right now is going to determine things down the road. Everything has an impact and influence. So, empathy. Can you be a little bit more empathetic? Can you try to put yourself in their shoes and try to be more understanding in the situations that you have, and be a little kinder right now? Because you don't know where people are. So being kinder can go a long ways. The S invested is soliciting data. And soliciting data from credible sources is more vital now than ever before, right? Because there's lots of things out there. There's lots of opinions. There's lots of sensationalism. But when it comes to making decisions, which happens to be coming up, when it comes to making decisions, you want to make sure you have the facts and the data from credible sources that are relevant for you and your industry. Then we have thinking strategically. So the T is think, but not just thinking, but thinking strategically, right? Because what happens is when we're in crisis and we're in that crisis zone, we tend to kind of react. We react to things. And you really want to take the time to make sure that you're taking the time to think. Because usually thinking time is the first thing to go away when things are crazy and frenetic. But now is the time to really take a breath, take a moment, make sure you're making the good choices. And it comes from having that time and that space to think. So turn off the noise, get quiet with yourself, and allow yourself that time and that space to think strategically about the things that you're doing right now. Then we have the E invested. The E is effective decisions and effective decision making, because when you do these other things, when you solicit the data, when you think strategically, guess what? The effective decisions become easier. They become easier to do. It all kind of builds and works together. It's because when you make decisions, and especially when you're in a leadership role, you want to make sure you delegate productively. Delegation is key to a leader getting more things done. And right now, with some people working from home, you got to trust. It might not be done exactly the way you do, but if you get the results that you want, delegating productively will help you go further and faster as a leader right now. So what do you think? What do you think is the most important one to you? Is it being visible? Is it being empathetic, soliciting data, thinking strategically, effective decision making, or delegating productively? Which one is most important to you as a leader right now? Life, leading, everything that you do is like you being on the controls of a helicopter. So you got to understand what flying a helicopter is like. With your right hand, you're on the cyclic. The cyclic is a stick. It controls the direction that we go. Which direction are we going to go? So if you want to go forward, go ahead and stick your hand out in front of you. Go ahead. You're going to push and lean forward. And if you want to go to the side, we're all going to go this way, okay? We're going to push and lean to that side. And with the cyclic, you're going to want to go to the other side. Let's push and lean to that side. And if you want to go back, you're going to push and lean back. Hey, whoa, whoa, whoa. You have a tail back there. Don't go too far back and hit your tail. That's bad. Don't do that. Now that's with your right hand. At the same time, your left hand, you're on the collective. The collective is the power. The higher you pull it, the more fuel it puts into the engine. The higher you pull it, more airspeed, the more airspeed you get. The higher you pull it, the more altitude you get. And if you pull it really high, you get both airspeed and altitude. So go ahead and pull some power. Imagine your elbows pinned. Yeah, pull that power. But what happens when you pull power like that and you're flying straight like this, what happens when you pull power is the power goes to the tail rotor and the tail kicks out to the side. Is that aerodynamic? So with your feet independently of each other, if you can, go ahead and push on the foot pedals, because that gets your tail behind you where it belongs. Then we have the center console of avionic and navigation equipment to tell you who to talk to and where to go. We have 4 feet of instrument panel to scan, because we have to stay in system limits, because even though we're in the air, there are speed limits. Yep. Yep. Just no signs. You have to have every single limit on every single gauge memorized. And while you're monitoring all that, you have your windows. You have a front windshield. You have a door window off to the side, and you have a chin bubble window down at your feet. In fact, right now, look at your toes through the desk, through the table. Because when you lose your engine in a helicopter, that's where you're going to go. There's no glide in a helicopter. You're going straight down. So it's really important that you don't hit a tree, a power line, another aircraft. Those are bad. Don't hit those all at the same time. But wait, there's more. Because while you're still doing all that, you've got a helmet on. And with your helmet, you're talking internally through the microphone to your crew and externally to air traffic control, all at the same time. It's like multitasking on steroids. No autopilot. Just like your life. Just like your leadership. Just like your business. Just like your career. Just like your family. No autopilot. You are on the controls. You are the pilot. You are in the pilot seat. And not only that, but you're the pilot in command. This is your time to be a proactive leader and be in the pilot seat of your life. Now, I have a gift for you. Does anyone like gifts? Anyone like surprises? I have a gift for you. If you go to, I have a gift for you. If you go to soaryourlife.com, soaryourlife, SOAR, yourlife.com, it's a free ticket to an online course all about motivation. It's a gift from me to you because I need you to soar. It's a gift from me to you because I want you to soar your life with you in the pilot seat.
All right, guys. So that was Elizabeth McCormick. And just obviously, Elizabeth is an amazing speaker. Well, I want to thank everybody who came and joined us. Just thank you very much to everyone. And my speakers, much love to all you guys taking time out of your day to spread your message from all over the world. I know these guys would be glad to come into companies and work with teams on spreading their incredible messages. I'll tell you, I am ready to get back on an airplane and come someplace. So if you want me to come in person, I will come. Because I will exercise my individual freedom and I will be there. So, but yeah, if you're interested in any of our speakers, please go to eaglerisespeakers.com and we'll be glad to connect you. If you are not following any of these individuals, definitely please check them out. They're on all the socials and they're all putting out great messages, on positivity and mindset and all the things that they speak on. So once again, I want to thank you guys.